There's a reason this card game is relevant when it comes to major world events, not because it predicts the future, but because sometimes it feels like it already knows the script. A network of powerful people, private parties, influence that stretches across media, business, and politics. And when the documents surfaced, when files got released, the public started asking the same question: how long has this been going on? Well, in this episode, we're not making accusations, we're not naming individuals, we're doing something else. We're laying out a card combination from the INWO card game and asking what the story tells, hypothetically, about how elite networks operate. Because when you put in specific cards together, they don't tell a story about one person. They tell a story about a whole entire system of people. So stick around because it's going to be pretty awesome. All right, everybody, welcome to another great episode of Don't Drink That. Now, just a little recap because I haven't done one of these videos in a minute. For those of you that don't know what the INWO card game is, it is a game made by Steve Jackson Games in the 90s. And it shows all of your major like world events in card form. And you put certain card combinations together and it shows real world, it mirrors real world events like organized attacks, surveillance, economic crashes, media manipulation, everything. So, whether coincidence or clever writing, the cards are designed to show how power structures interact. Each card represents an influence: media, corporations, government, or secret groups. And when you stack certain cards together, they create a narrative, not a prophecy, not proof, just a narrative. And this episode's narrative is about what happens when powerful social network exists behind closed doors. So, this is just for entertainment purposes. I'm not stating facts. I'm just putting pieces together and seeing what sticks. So, join this journey with me and let's get moving. So, we have our card spread. Now, here's the hypothetical combination that we're looking at: secret society, power elite, private investigators, and entertainment industry. Those four cards. They're harmless concepts, but together they form a structure. So let's break down what that structure looks like. So you have your secret society. Now, the first card in the game, this represents a closed circle. Membership is selective. Access is controlled. Outsiders don't see what happens inside. Historically, secret societies have existed for centuries. Some were philosophical, some political, some purely social. But the core feature is always the same. Exclusivity creates protection. When powerful people gather in private environments, they operate under different rules. Not illegal rules necessarily, just different ones. The card suggests a space where relationships form from public scrutiny, a place where reputations are built, deals are made, loyalty is tested, and in the game's logic, secret societies are force multipliers. They connect individuals who already have influence and give them collective protection, which leads us to the next card: Power Elite. The Power Elite card represents people with enormous social, political, or financial influence. Not just wealthy individuals, not just celebrities. People whose decisions shape systems. In the game, this card doesn't act loudly, it acts quietly. The Power Elite doesn't need public attention. They already have access. When you combine secret society with power elite, you get a closed network of highly influential individuals operating in private spaces. The question isn't whether networks like this exist. Of course they do. Every industry has private circles. Every level of power has gatherings, even private ones. The real question becomes what happens when a network becomes too insulated. Because the more exclusive a circle becomes, the harder it is for outsiders to see what's happening inside. And that's where the next card enters the chat: Private Investigators. The Private Investigators card in the game represents information control, surveillance, background checks, reputation management. In a power network, information is currency. Who knows what about whom? Who has leverage? Who has secrets? Private investigators, in the card game's narrative logic, aren't just looking for crimes. They're looking and collecting information because information equals control. If a powerful network gathers information on its own members or on outsiders, that information becomes leverage, not necessarily used, just held. And sometimes the mere existence of information keeps people compliant. Again, this is a hypothetical narrative the cards suggest, not an accusation. A structure, a closed network, influential members, information collection. Now, let's add the final card, the entertainment industry. The entertainment industry card represents visibility, celebrities, media figures, and public facing influence. Now, why would an elite network include entertainment connections? Because entertainment shapes culture, culture shapes perception, perception shapes reality, and in the game's mechanics, the media and entertainment amplify influence. Then they make narratives stick. They also create distraction. If a powerful network has connections to entertainment, it gains something incredibly valuable, narrative control. Not total control, just enough to steer attention, because the most effective way to avoid scrutiny isn't to hide completely, it's to keep the spotlight moving. So now we're going to put the cards together. Let's look at the full hypothetical structure: secret society, power elite, private investigators, and the entertainment industry. This combination tells a story about how a network that is private, influential, information aware, narrative savvy, a network that protects itself not through force but through insulation. If something happens inside that network, a scandal, a leak, a controversy, the structure itself absorbs the shock. Information is contained, narratives are shaped, attention shifts. Again, this is a symbolic reading of cards, but it mirrors a pattern people often feel exists, that powerful circles are harder to penetrate, harder to expose, and harder to disrupt. Why this could connect to the JE file disclosure. Whenever a large document release happens, any major scandal involving elite figures, the public expects a domino effect. They expect the entire structure to collapse. But often, what happens instead is slower and quieter. Partial information, media filtering, limited consequences, whether that's due to legal complexity, lack of evidence, or systemic protection. People interpret it through the lens of networks protecting themselves. And that's why this card combination resonates. Not because it proves anything, but because it reflects a pattern people believe they're seeing. The INWO card game doesn't predict the future. It reflects fears about power, closed circles, influence, information control. When you lay these cards out, they tell a story about how systems protect themselves. Not perfectly, not forever, but often enough to make people wonder. Alright guys, I just want to take a quick break to share this with you. So Dubby Energy, my new sponsor, sent me a care package. This is pure energy drink supplement. Contains coffee bean extract. It's jitterless. Flavor is retro sherbet. I'm so excited that I wanted to try it on camera for you guys. So check this out. Chainsaw Man cup. This was straight from Dubby, along with this awesome Dubby hat. And as you can see, be better, guys. Alright. Now, discount code Don't Drink That will be down below. Go to dubby.gg and get your energy supplement today. Only 150 milligrams of caffeine. Oh, that is delicious. Tastes just like the push pop when you were a kid. Alright, let's get back to the episode. Okay, now let's look at the next card combination we have. Okay, so here's the hypothetical spread here. Secrets man was not meant to know. Tape runs out. Phone company. Computer virus. 4 more cards. Together, they tell a story about information being gathered, stored, and eventually leaking. This isn't about proving anything, it's about exploring what narrative these cards create when placed next to real world life disclosures and public reactions to those disclosures. Because the most powerful currency in any elite network isn't about money, it's information and leverage. So let's go into secrets man was not meant to know. So this card might be the most chilling in the entire deck. Secrets man was not meant to know in this game represents hidden knowledge. Information isn't supposed to reach the public. Not necessarily supernatural secrets, just damaging ones. Scandals, private behavior, conversations behind closed doors. When this card appears in a combination, it suggests the existence of information that could disrupt power structures if revealed. Alright, so every powerful network generates secrets. Not because they're evil, because they're human. Because when those secrets involve influential people, they carry weight. And once secrets exist, they can be collected, which brings us to the next card. Information as leverage. In elite environments, information doesn't always get exposed. Sometimes it gets stored, held, or cataloged. The purpose isn't always blackmail in the dramatic movie sense. Sometimes it's simply leverage. If someone in a circle knows that information exists, behavior changes. People stay quiet. People cooperate. People avoid conflict because information creates pressure without ever being used. The cards don't show dramatic confrontations, they show quiet control. A network stabilized by what everyone knows but no one says. And then we get to the most unsettling card in the spread. Tape runs out. This card represents something crucial, recorded evidence. In the 1990s, when this game was made, that meant physical tapes, cameras, recorders. Today it can mean digital anything. The symbolism is simple. If something is recorded, it can be stored. If it's stored, it can be used. And if it can be used, it becomes power. But the card's name is important. Tape runs out, meaning something interrupts the recording. Something stops the process. Something prevents the full story from being captured. In narrative terms, this suggests incomplete evidence, partial records, missing context, fragments of truth, enough to raise questions, not enough to resolve them, which leads directly into the next phase of this spread. Phone company. Phone company represents communication control. Who talks to whom? Who calls whom? Who knows whom? In modern terms, this expands to digital communication, messages, contacts, connections. In any major scandal involving documents or files, one of the first things people look for is connections. Who was connected to who? Who communicated with who? Who appears in records? But communication records don't always tell the full story. They show contact, not context. And when large batches of information get released, the public often expects a clear narrative. Instead, they get fragments, names with explanations or without explanations, connections without conclusions, which brings us to the final card. The computer virus. This card represents digital disruption, leaks, data breaches, information spreading beyond its intended boundaries. In the card game's logic, a virus doesn't destroy everything. It spreads unpredictably. Some information gets out, some stays hidden, some gets altered, some disappears. When applied symbolically to file disclosures, this card suggests a chaotic release of information. Documents surface, but not all the documents. Names appear, but not all names. Stories emerge, but not complete ones. The result isn't clarity, it's confusion. And confusion creates something powerful, narrative control. Because when the public doesn't get the full picture, different interpretations compete. Some believe everything. Some believe nothing. Most are left uncertain. But here's the full narrative. Let's look at the complete combination. Secrets man was not meant to know, plus tape runs out, plus phone company, plus computer virus. This tells a story about information being collected, recorded, interrupted, leaked, and fragmented, not fully exposed. Just enough to destabilize trust. The cards don't show total transparency, they show partial disclosure. Information emerges in waves. Questions multiply faster than the answers. Over time, public attention shifts, not because people stop caring, but because uncertainty is exhausting. So, in this episode, we talked about networks and about what happens when information from inside those networks starts to surface. The cards don't claim to predict real events, they reflect patterns people recognize. Secrets exist, information gets collected, and some of it leaks. Most of it doesn't, and when files are released, the public hopes for resolution. But often, what they get instead is ambiguity. So, in the next episode, we're going to explore what happens when a major figure at the center of a scandal is suddenly removed from the equation. Because the next card combination isn't about interruption, and what happens when the story stops before it's finished. Until then, the question isn't just what's in the files, it's who controls when those files appear and what happens when they don't, or after they do, or what's the repercussion. So, stay safe, guys. I love you, and remember, please don't drink that, because this shit's getting more tainted every day. Peace.